I'm Carla Alexander, and I want to show you how to use my ruler, the curved slotted ruler. And so it's a rectangle ruler with 6 slots, and there's 6 different curves in the ruler. So what I like to do is I like to take a stack of fabric, and this is a stack of rectangles. These are 9 by 12, and what I like to do is I like to layer them light, dark, or contrasting, whichever works best for you, and I'm going to lay them right on top of each other. Light, dark, and now I'm going to have a light one and then a dark. I have a lot of fun with this ruler. You can make rail fence quilts with it. You can do all kinds of things. You can make borders with it, and I'm going to show you, first of all, how to cut. So the height needs to be 9 inches, and it could be less, but that's the longest, that's the highest you'll want it to be. So you see I have it centered in here underneath the ruler about 1/2 inch from each edge, and here are my curves starting right here. So the best way to tell you to do this is curves ahead, slow down. So you can't just take a running start and not expect to run into the ruler. I'm going to show you how to do it really easily. And what I do is I pull my blade back, and I pull it over to the edge right here until I click in, and you'll be able to hear this, I hope. There, I've clicked into that groove. And then I'm going to crunch down standing straight up rather than at an angle, but straight up. And I'm going to put my fingers right here because if you look, it's kind of like a piano key. And if you don't push down on it, you're going to lose control and maybe not cut all the way through. So once I kind of keep my fingers away from the blade, but on this little strip right here, then I'm going to slow down and I'm going to lean and cut. As soon as I get past my middle finger, I want to stop right here, keep the pressure on the blade, and walk my hand up a couple inches again. So there's my first cut. I'm going to come over to the second one, pull the blade over, lock in. There we go. Stand straight up and crunch down, roll back, and here we go for this cut. And you kind of want to lean with the curve, take a look at it, and think about what you're doing rather than just trying to make a straight cut. You have to lean. Okay, and we have a couple more to go here. Go straight down, push down on the little strip there. And we have 2 left to go. Punch down. And always walk your finger. Don't let the blade get way ahead of you like that. Okay, now before I lift the ruler up, what I want to tell you is perhaps you like that curve one better than you do the center one. You can always pick the ruler up and move it and turn it and use whichever curve you want. With beginners, sometimes I tell them that this center curve is the curviest one, so I'll have them just use these outer curves. And you can just simply pick it up and move it over a couple inches until you have all the cuts that you need. So here we go. Sometimes I have people that don't go all the way through, that here at the bottom. That's not a big deal. All you do is lift it up. If you didn't make it through, just go ahead and cut it. Let's separate it and take a look. And you can see how beautiful that is. Okay, there we go. So there's all 7 pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I'm going to shuffle this deck, and that means I'm going to mix the pieces up. So when you sew them back together, you have a good arrangement in each block. So I'm going to do the same thing from each side, and you'll watch what I mean. I'm going to move in one piece, and I'm going to lift the top layer off. I'm going to place it on the bottom of the stack. And then I'm going to put that one right back on top. I'm going to do the same thing from the other end. Pick up the whole stack, take one piece off, and place it back. Now I'm going to move into the third stack, and I'm going to take 2 pieces off. See how this piece stays on the top? So now it's going to move to the bottom. I'm going to do the same thing from this side. So I'm going to take the top 2 pieces off and place them right here. Remember, we had 4 fabrics, so you're going to get to see all 4 fabrics now. 1, 2, that was left behind here. Now we're going to take it off, and now you have 4 different fabrics that you're going to get to see. So the assortment is going to show you 4 different fabrics, and you only cut through 4 layers. And so every layer is going to be slightly different because each one of these edge pieces are now going to move to the outside edge. So your next block down, we'll have the assortment in a different kind of order. So now you have a light edge, or on this one you had a dark edge. The next one down, of course, will have the dark edge. So now it's time to sew those together. But before we sew those together, I want to show you one other quick thing, because we cut through 4 layers of fabric. So I know some of you feel like you can't cut through 4 layers. One thing you could do would be to cut 2 layers at a time and then just set them on top of each other. Then you can get that assortment. But perhaps you want a quilt with just 2 colors in it. What would you do? Well, you would just begin with those 2 colors. We'll say this one. And then when you shuffled them, you would just simply always have every other piece be one of the 2 colors that you chose. So you can always just cut through 2 layers or 4, and if you cut the way I showed you, I have no problem cutting through 6 layers, so long as I'm using a nice sharp blade and paying attention to what I do. So now you can see that this layer, this block, would have dark edges, and the one, of course, underneath it would have light. Okay, so one way I like to sew curves is I like to use double sticky mounting tape, or you can get some tape from your local quilt store, and it kind of lifts up here and gives you an edge. And what I like to do is I like to take my ruler and I bring the needle right down onto the 1/4 inch line. And then I take a piece of this double sticky mounting tape and I'm just going to put it in front of the feed dogs, never on, but right out in front. So let me push that down right there. And then back the needle off. And pull that out. You can straighten it out if you need to. There we go. And then what I've done with the deck, I kind of stick it to a piece of paper with a pin. And that way if I drop it or anything happens, I still have them in the exact order. And I'm going to start from this side and I'm going to chain sew. So I'm going to take that first layer right here and I'm going to unpin the second set as well. And what I also like to use is the little nipper scissors. So I'm going to take these 2 pieces and I'm going to match them right sides together. And I'm not so worried about the offset because what I'm going to do is trim those square once I get them all done. And I always like to begin with a needle down position. And what I do is I take this top piece in my hand and I kind of pleat it up like this and I swing and bend this lower curve until it matches. I like to use these nippers to kind of pull it over so it matches the edge of the tape, and then I bring this top piece and I kind of bend it in place. And I stop, and sometimes I like to use these little nippers to just kind of pull that piece over there and or swing it over here and match the edge and then pull it back. And I can make sure that there's no pleats underneath there. And I'm just going to continually match it up against this curve right here. And you can see how helpful those little nippers are. My tape isn't sticking very well because it's been in my suitcase. Oh, sorry. Let me stick that back down. And then what I would do is I wouldn't break the thread. I would just pick up my next 2 sets and I would start sewing again. And I just feed it in like this. And again, pleat this up in my hand and pull it away. Use the nippers to pull that little curve back over. Always lining up the raw edge of the fabric with that tape. And I can sometimes swing it away, and now you want to make sure that you don't have any pleats on the underneath side. And pull that back over and continue to sew. And I actually pivot the fabric rather than stretch it. And here we go. So I would go down through the stack until I had sewed all 6 layers. And then once I got to the bottom of the stack, then I would break the thread, and I would pull the whole thing back towards me again, and I would open it up, and you can see how beautiful those curves are. And I would open it up, and I would flip this piece right sides together, and I would begin sewing again. Now I have my iron set up, and I just sewed 2 of the pieces, and I want to show you how to press them. So I'm going to clip them apart. And one product that I really love to use is this Steady Betty. If you don't have one of those, you can use a towel. But what I like to do is I like to steam it and get it really hot. And then I take my pieces and I just press towards the dark. And I kind of just hold my hand right there for a second, and with the seam directed in one direction. And then I'm going to take the iron, and you can use steam, but just on the Steady Betty, what it does is it holds it right in place, and it won't let it move or distort the seam. I have a little pinch mark right here in that seam, and there we go. And you can see how it presses it so nicely, so there's no shelving whatsoever, so there's no deep spot. And let's get this one as well. And if I just hold it kind of down on the warmth of the board, or if you have a towel, then you can do the same thing and just press it and hold it. And you can see how beautiful those curves are. So anybody can do it. And I have a lot of fun with this ruler because I do a lot of different techniques with it. And I just want to show you real quick, when I square it up, this is how they end up. And I just square those up so it's nice and square. And when I'm done sewing, I never have to stop and press, because if you sew the way I just showed you to, you can see that I just chain sewed them all together. These are pressed, of course, but once I stand up, I have all 6 blocks done, or 4, or however many you started with. Now, if you want to have one more fun way to use the ruler, you can always do this. And what I like to do is take a stack of fabric and cut it into rectangles. And if I don't have enough length, or if I want to do this, then I will just add a black piece and a white piece to the top or bottom. You can see on the second layer I didn't, and on some of them I have added the layers in, and so for the top and bottom edges. So I want to show you what happens, similar to the quilt behind me, what happens when I shuffle this deck. So I would take one off the top and move it to the bottom, and now I would take 2, and you can see how you get these cute little black and white pieces in there. And you know, really it doesn't matter, like if you had that piece right there again, if you wanted to come back to the very top, you can arrange this set however you want, so it's pleasing to you, and as long as you don't have any of the same pieces side by side, you can really arrange it however you want. And that's shown right here in this quilt called Run for Color. So I want to show you one more quick thing, because a ruler is very versatile. And if you were doing, and here's some blocks I already sewed, if you were doing a quilt, maybe a pre-print or something that you just wanted to do a border with, this is a really fun way to do it. Get your little center all done, and then you can use these as like a border. And the best part is the way you go around the corner. Instead of just going like this, if you take 2 squares and you set them on top of each other, and you cut them in half, you put them right sides together, and you cut them in half diagonally, and sew them back together, you get a block that looks like that, and then it looks like you've mitered your corner, and you can come up around your quilt like that. And you don't have, it's easy, you could just still sew the side borders on, and then add that whole piece on the bottom. If it's not long enough, splice just a regular one of these strips, a straight strip, and no one will know the difference to get the correct width. So I hope you have a lot of fun using the ruler. Play around with it, use the different curves. You can use it for all kinds of things. They have a lot of patterns that use the ruler. The main thing is that you have fun and don't be afraid of curves. Have fun.